I want to ask you something. When was the last time you got dressed and thought, yes, this is exactly me? Not this works, not this is appropriate, not this is what I'm supposed to wear, but genuinely, yes, this is me. For a lot of women, that moment is rare and infrequent. And for some women, it's been so long that they can't remember the last time it happened. And today I want to talk to you about why, because it is not a shopping problem. It is not a style problem. It's an identity problem. And once you understand what your style preferences are actually telling you, everything changes. I'm going to walk you through these 3 shifts today. And the third one, about what happens when you finally start dressing like yourself, is the one that most women have never heard of. And so stay with me until the end. And before I get into this, if you find value in what I share here today, subscribing really does help. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. It means that you will not miss an episode. So if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Okay, let's get into it. So here is something I have noticed consistently in the women I work with. They know what they like. They've always known. If you show them an image, they will tell you immediately whether it resonates or not. They have been curating their visual world their entire life, saving images, responding to colors, drawn to certain moods and aesthetics without ever being taught to do it. It's so instinctive. But when they open their wardrobe every morning, most of that knowing disappears. And they put on what is appropriate, what fits the environment, what doesn't stand out too much, what makes it easier for them to be around. They dress for the room they are walking into. They dress for other people. They dress for trends. They dress to fit in rather than to be the woman they actually are. And over time, sometimes years, sometimes decades, that gap between what they visually love and what they wear becomes so familiar, they stop noticing. They just think, I have no style. I just don't know what looks good on me. But that's not what is happening. What is happening is that they've been so focused on dressing for the environment, for the professional context, for the social expectations, for what women in their position are supposed to look like, that they have lost touch with their own visual language. And your visual language is not a small thing. It's actually a window into your inner world, into who you are, into how you're designed to show up. Let me tell you about a woman that I work with. When I first looked at images she sent me, the colors she loved, the aesthetics she was drawn to, the mood she responded to, I saw someone rich with expression, full of personality. Her world was colorful, layered, deep, specific to her, but her actual wardrobe was conservative. It was muted. It was safe. She dressed for her professional environment, conforming to what she thought was expected of her so long that there was almost no overlap between the woman in her images and the woman getting dressed every morning. And when I reflected that back to her, when she saw the gap laid out clearly for the first time, she was surprised. She knew what she liked. She had always known, but she had never seen it all together in one place. She had never had anyone show her how wide that gap had become between her inner world and her outer expression. That gap is what this episode is about. And more importantly, how do you close it? So the 3 shifts. First, start looking at what you're actually drawn to, not what you think you should look like, not what looks good on other people, not what the magazines say this is appropriate for your age and body and your position, but what are you actually genuinely instinctively drawn to? Your visual preferences are not random. They're your inner world expressed as art. Every color that feels like home, every silhouette that resonates, every mood that pulls you in, all of that is telling you something true and specific about who you are. And the colors you love tell you something about your emotional and energetic world. The structure you prefer, whether you're drawn to clean, precise lines or fluid draping fabrics, tells you something about how you move in the world. The overall mood you respond to tells you something about how you feel when you walk into a room. Start paying attention to this. Start noticing what you save. Notice what makes you stop scrolling, makes you say, ooh, I love that. That is data about you. Second, notice the gap. Once you start looking at what you're actually drawn to, you will probably start to notice the gap between what you visually love and what you actually wear, between the woman in your images and the woman in your wardrobe. Then that gap, do not take it as failure. It's simply information. It is showing you exactly where your identity has been hiding, where you stopped expressing yourself and you started conforming instead. And sometimes that gap is small and sometimes it's significant. Sometimes what you say you want to be perceived as and what your visual preferences are completely aligned, and sometimes they're not. And that difference is the most honest, revealing pieces of self knowledge you will encounter. The gap is not something to judge, it's something to get curious about. When did you stop dressing like yourself? What were you dressing for instead? Third, start small. Trust yourself. This shift, most style advice skips entirely because dressing more like yourself is not just a practical change, it's an identity shift. And identity shifts take courage. The woman I told you about earlier, when she saw the gap between her images and her wardrobe, she was hesitant. She understood it intellectually and she could clearly see it, but actually dressing more like herself felt exposing because dressing more like herself means she's more visible, means she's more seen. She had spent so many years trying to fit inside her environment that being seen as someone distinct, as someone unique, was frightening. So she started small, one colorful piece, one thing that felt more like her, a little less like how she'd been dressing. And something shifted, not just in how she looked and in how she felt, but in how she carried herself and how people responded to her. Because here's what I've come to understand after years of helping people with their style. When you stop dressing for the environment and you start dressing for yourself, people can finally see you. And more importantly, you can finally see yourself. And that's not a small thing. That is everything. Your style is not just a project to complete. It's not a set of rules to follow. And it's not about finding your seasonal color palette or your body type or your capsule wardrobe formula. It is a language you already speak. And you've been speaking it your entire life. Every image you've saved, every color you've loved, every outfit that has made you feel like yourself. You just need someone to help you hear what you've been saying to yourself all along. And once you start hearing it, shopping changes, getting dressed changes, how you move through the world changes, not because you found the right rules, but because you started listening to yourself. This week's reflection, look at the images you are drawn to, the ones you saved, the ones you stopped the scroll for, the ones that make you think, I love that. Then look at your wardrobe and notice how wide that gap is. If this episode landed for you, I would love it if you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I put something out every Sunday, and if you found this helpful, a like really does make a difference, and it helps more women find this content. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what are the issues you're currently facing with your wardrobe? I read every single comment, and I would genuinely love to know what you notice. And if you're ready to go deeper and to actually have someone help you with your visual language and understand what it is telling you about who you are, I have the Radiance Style Reset linked in the description below. It's a 90-minute private session where this work gets real and specific to you. I'd love to work with there. I will see you next Sunday.